Hi, I'm Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas. Until a few weeks ago, I was planning on attending the Light of Hope Breakfast in person, an event I've attended for a number of years. But as we all know, this year is different. But one thing that hasn't changed is the need, and so many families and young people that Jackson County CASA supports. The help you give is vital to making sure that Jackson County CASA, and frankly, all of Kansas City, our courts are able to fulfill our mission of treating our children, our young people, with dignity, making sure they have somewhere safe to go, making sure they have someone who cares. So even though we're not getting together in person, I hope we can all get together online and make sure that we continue to provide support to Jackson County CASA this year. Your support is vital to making sure we carry through a mission, particularly at this time when so many children, so many families are in need. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your years of attendance. We look forward to getting together soon, but in the meantime, let's make sure we help.
Hello and welcome to Jackson County CASA's virtual Light of Hope event. My name is Angie Blummel. I'm the president and CEO of CASA, and I'm so grateful that you're here with us today. During these challenging and unprecedented times, we hope that you and your loved ones are safe and well. And while this isn't the breakfast that we planned, today we are going to share a little bit about CASA and our impact. We will still present our Light of Hope Award and our Teresa Rabideau Award for Volunteer Excellence. So thanks for being with us. We have a great event planned for you. And now I'd like to introduce our board chair, Gary Bussing, who will do a welcome.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gary Bussing. I'm proud to be board chair for Jackson County CASA for the year 2020. I want to thank you all for being here this morning, even though it's not as we originally intended. Our purpose here is to thank the many people who make CASA a success. Specifically, Brian Johnson, our honorary chair this year, our wonderful donors, supporters, our staff, and most importantly, the wonderful volunteers that help our children find success. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks, Gary. Next up, I'd like to introduce our honorary chair of the Light of Hope event, Brian Johnson. Brian is the immediate past CEO of Colliers International and currently the principal with Colliers. He has been absolutely terrific as we prepare for this event, reaching out to his many contacts in the community, gathering support for Jackson County CASA, and we're so grateful to Brian Johnson, our honorary chair.
Well, I've always wanted to use the line, "Good morning, ladies and germs," and that's really appropriate this time for this event. Hopefully you're germ-free. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody this morning to the virtual CASA event. Normally there'd be roughly 1,200 to 1,250 people in the room today. That's about the same number of kids that served last year in CASA. And if for those of you who have been to the event, you recognize how many people that really is, which is amazing. Colliers International is really excited to be a supporter today. When I went to my exec committee to ask if we could be a presenting sponsor, it took literally 1 hour and I had the okay, and we were really excited to support CASA, and we're fortunate to support CASA. It's something that's very important for the community. So we're going to have a great event today, even though we're not in the same room. So enjoy today and support CASA.
Our Light of Hope event is designed to celebrate our volunteers, donors, and community partners. At the event, we present the Light of Hope Award, and this year is no different. We're excited to present the Light of Hope Award to Scott and Lisa Foster of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. The Light of Hope Award is presented to an individual, organization, foundation, or corporation who has demonstrated a lasting and extraordinary commitment to the mission of Jackson County CASA. I'm so pleased to announce that this year's Light of Hope Award winner is Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
When kids come into care, our number one preference is for them to stay with family, to stay with people that they know, so that they feel comfortable, so that the transition out of their parents' home isn't as traumatic. We try to lessen the trauma in the best ways that we can, and one of the best ways that we can do that is to make sure that they stay with somebody safe and appropriate who they know. It's very hard to do that when you're asking someone to take in 4, 5, 6 kids in order to be able to keep siblings together, and ask those people at the same time to make sure that they have beds for all of those children. And that's where Sleep in Heavenly Peace is able to come in and provide those beds so that children spend the least amount of time outside the home of a relative in a foster home and are able to spend every night with someone that they already know and trust in a place where they feel safe.
We build beds for kids because we figure on average there's about 2% of the population that don't have beds of their own. Most people don't realize that it's a problem. I tend to describe it as a problem that's behind 4 walls and a locked door. And very few people get beyond that door to see that situation.
A couple of years ago, we made connection with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and they are an organization who brings together volunteers to build, create, assemble, and then deliver beds for kids who don't otherwise have beds in their homes. So they give not only kids a safe and comfortable place to sleep, but also dignity.
We had our first build in June of 2018. In our first year, we built 110 beds. In 2019, we built 550 beds. And I estimate 160 of those have gone to CASA children. We deliver all of our beds fully furnished. So when we go on our deliveries, we set the beds up and assemble them. We bring in brand new mattresses and brand new bedding, brand new pillows. Everything is brand new packaged, and for a lot of these kids, it's the first time they've ever had anything that wasn't a hand-me-down. We come across a lot of kids who, this is their very first bed. We've actually delivered to children who are 14, 15 years old and never had a bed. We delivered to children who've never even had a pillow to lay their head on. You know, we get so many different reactions from the children when we deliver beds to them. Most of them are, you know, joyful, and you know, it's a lot of laughs. We interact with the children during those deliveries, and they help us put their beds together. So, you know, most of the time it's laughing. Sometimes the children are overwhelmed. I don't know that it's the bed themselves. Maybe it's just the thought that somebody cared enough to do something for them like that. We are a 100% volunteer organization. And our pay for what we do is the smiles and the hugs and the occasional I love yous. That's our reward for what we do. My wife Lisa is our vice president of our chapter, and she handles all the logistics for the most part. She has a hard time speaking about what we do because of the emotions involved. We look at these kids as our kids. We love these kids, and my wife can probably tell you every child's name that we've delivered beds to. But just to see the joy that a bed brings, the joy that a pillow brings.
We have family members all the time that want to step in and bring children into their home. They have the love, they have the safety, they have the support. They don't have the room, they don't have the extra beds. Sleep in Heavenly Peace provides an excellent resource for our families to provide the beds that are needed in homes that are already safe with caregivers that children trust.
We're so grateful to them as our Light of Hope Award winner this year that they provide this critical service to the children and families that we serve.
When you see the impact of this gift, giving this child this bed, it really changes your heart, and it lights a fire inside you, and you just want to do it again and again and again.
One of my favorite parts of the Light of Hope event is the presentation of the Teresa Rabideau Award for Volunteer Excellence. Now, I firmly believe that all of our CASA volunteers are deserving of an award each year for what they do for the children that we serve. This year, we are excited to highlight just one of our amazing volunteers and honor her for the Teresa Rabideau Award for Volunteer Excellence, and that volunteer is Tricia Crowder.
The Teresa Rabideau Award for Volunteer Excellence was named after a longtime CASA volunteer, Teresa Rabideau. Teresa volunteered for over 14 years for CASA and served more than 30 children during that time. Teresa Rabideau passed away on New Year's Day 2014. It didn't take but a minute to decide some tribute needed to be made in her honor.
Very happy for Tricia to be nominated for the Teresa Rabideau Award for Volunteer Excellence. I think she perfectly embodies everything that Teresa embodied in a volunteer in terms of being an advocate, in terms of the love that she provides to her cases, her dedication to CASA as an organization, and her dedication to every single individual child that she represents.
Tricia Crowder is an incredible volunteer. Basically, I would say that she would go to the ends of the earth to make sure that any kid who she's working with, who is on her caseload, gets the help and assistance that they need. And she is a tireless advocate for them and their best interests. So I think that she is the personification of volunteer excellence.
She's relentless, she's dedicated, she's empathetic, she's very good at meeting people where they're at. Literally, I see her hop down onto the child's level and sit on the floor with them over at Family Court. She meets the people where they're at and gets to know them and finds out what they need.
Tricia is awesome. She is so easygoing. She's the ideal volunteer because she has, at least she doesn't show that she has any expectations. She goes in with an open mind. She shows up consistently, even when I'm not expecting her to.
I feel that Tricia makes these kids feel loved and supported, and I think that that's the most important thing.
There really is something to being the voice for a child in court. My role as a CASA volunteer is, I feel, is another really good set of eyes. And I also definitely see myself as being loyal to the kid. I mean, depending on your case, you may be talking to parents, foster parents, grandparents, and I tell them that we are a team, but my first and foremost priority is I am there to make sure that what is in the best interest of the child is what is served by the team.
I mean, the reality of the work that I do, and I think about this a lot, is that you get to see a lot of really bad things. You get to see the worst side of people.
The hardest thing for me is when I have to look at my kid and someone's hurt them. Unfortunately for me, I had to do that yesterday, knowing that I had absolutely no control and I couldn't protect this kid. To look into his face and his eye is swollen shut and he's actually going through emergency outpatient surgery today. It's hard. It's really hard.
But the flip side of that coin is that you get to work with the very best people in the world, and getting to interact with them on a professional level is it's a privilege. And so when I get to work with Tricia, it's energizing, and I don't lose sight of the fact that I'm working with somebody who's able to do a million different things extraordinarily well, and she's giving her time to help me do my job and to help these children, and that's something I don't lose sight of.
I have been really happy to return a baby to his mom, and I've also had the privilege of seeing kids become permanent parts of families that they weren't born into. So I think just having that permanency for kids, that sense of belonging that they've always been looking for, and have that happen for them, speechless. I guess it's partly personal for me, I think. I've never seen my father cry, except when he talked about being an orphan by the time he was 13, and knowing that where we grew up, there was no safety net for anybody like him. He had to be lucky enough to have family that would take him in, and then he would have to be luckier for those family members not to mistreat him. And my dad was lucky, but not luckier. So I think I've come to realize that that's part of the reason that I've wanted to be a CASA, was that my dad made sure that we were lucky and luckier. So I would like kids who didn't kind of get that first chance at getting luckier to get lucky and luckier as well.
At Jackson County CASA, our mission is to serve as the voice in court for children experiencing abuse and neglect. We do this by recruiting and training lay volunteers who advocate on behalf of the best interest of our kids. They ensure that our kids have the medical, therapeutic, and educational services they need while in foster care, and most importantly, they ensure that our kids end up in a safe and permanent home. Quite literally, we could not do what we do without our dedicated CASA volunteers. But it doesn't just stop with our volunteers. Each child that we serve receives a 3-person team. Of course, the CASA volunteer, but also a guardian ad litem or staff attorney, and finally a case supervisor. This 3-person team wraps around each child that we serve to ensure that they receive a safe and permanent home.
These children are kids who've been removed from their home. They are children who were born into a family that for one reason or another at the moment doesn't work out. They are in the care and custody of the state of Missouri, and CASA's mission is to make sure that that child is not a number, that child is not a statistic. We train lay volunteers to advocate for kids through the court process. We employ CASA case supervisors that work diligently with those volunteers and the attorneys, and we have attorneys on staff that are providing a voice for every child in the courtroom.
So as a CASA case supervisor, it's my job to oversee volunteers. I work on cases with a 3-person team with an attorney, the volunteer. I tell people I'm kind of like the social worker on the case. I work to find resources and holes so we can get kids to permanency.
As a case supervisor, I generally am kind of a go-between between the volunteer and the attorney handling the case for CASA. I also will work with giving the volunteer guidance as far as questions or concerns that come up. We'll sometimes coordinate between the Children's Division caseworker, pretty much try to help the volunteers do anything they can to advocate better for the children.
I attend court and advocate for the children during all of their hearings, as well as attending hearings and doing everything else a lawyer might do, filing motions, making phone calls, all the rest, advocating for children.
We really work on a team to make sure that every child has a voice inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. While the legal process is important and is the ultimate decision maker, a lot of decisions about kids, where they're placed, who they see, how often they get to see their parents, a lot of those decisions are made outside the courtroom.
In my caseload, I have at least 200 children. That's about 60 cases, and I have about 55 volunteers. It's just not possible to do this work without a CASA volunteer representing the child. Maybe I could do like an eighth of the caseload that I have right now, something like that, a tenth, I don't know. But it's just not possible to do what we do at CASA without volunteers.
The CASA volunteer is essential for my role and for the role of the CASA team. The volunteer goes and visits our kids every month, and sometimes more than once a month. They work to build relationships with all of the people involved in our kids' cases and in their lives to help reach our goals and help reach permanency.
I think what it means to be a CASA volunteer is to be a very strong advocate for a child that sometimes doesn't have anyone else.
I think that there are times when, especially in the beginning, there are times when children who have been victims of incredible trauma, neglect, abuse, and I think with all volunteers, I think that the first thing you have to be able to do is commit to that child. It's the most stable person, generally, that a child who is under the jurisdiction of family court will have in their lives as their CASA volunteer.
If you're thinking of being a CASA, it's worth it. It's not always going to be easy, but just remember you're there for the kid. That's what being a CASA is. It's your kid's voice.
The system is really hard. It's really difficult to navigate through, and I think our CASA volunteers, we couldn't do it without them.
We need the community support because we can't do it without the community, and a lot of the issues we're dealing with are community issues, and so this is important to us, but to society as a whole, to give these families help.
CASA always needs volunteers. Volunteers who have a passion for children and a passion for justice and a passion to see children safe in their environment.
CASA is a very worthy organization to support because you are not doing it for the adults who are doing this work. You're doing it for the children.
Donations go to making sure that every child that is in the custody of the state of Missouri has a voice, has an advocate, and that voice is heard throughout the court system and throughout their lives to make sure that that child ends up with a safe and permanent home. When you give to CASA, you're helping to change a child's story for the better.
And we couldn't do this work without you. Because of you, our dedicated supporters, last year we served over 1,265 kids. And this year we hope to serve even more. The Light of Hope event makes up about 20% of our agency budget. So we hope today that you've heard about our impact and the importance of the organization, and you consider giving to Jackson County CASA. There are 3 ways that you can help today. First, consider a donation to Jackson County CASA. We're trying to make it as easy as possible by visiting our website and clicking on the donate button. You can text in your donation, or you can mail it to Jackson County CASA. Second, please help by considering becoming a CASA volunteer. We need you now more than ever. And third, please share this message with your friends and contacts. We want people to hear about the impact of Jackson County CASA, and we want your help. Thank you so much for participating today and for sharing this time with us. We wish you well.